So welcome back to Savvy Organics Farm and Modern Homestead. Today I'm talking about cedar trees, like this beautiful guy right here. So are cedar trees, are they detrimental to your homestead? Are they detrimental to your property? We're going to explore some of the yeses, some of the pros, some of the cons. So we'll go from there. So cedar trees, they are beautiful and they certainly have some uses, but let's talk more about how they can be a detriment and how they can actually be useful. So one of the useful things about cedar trees is they're slow to deteriorate, they're slow to rot. They make really good fence posts. We have a few too many of them here on our homestead, and but what I am going to use them. So I'm going to buck the limbs off of trees like this one. This is a cedar tree I cut down. And I'm going to buck this tree, and this one is about 14 feet, so I'll have some good sections here I can use for fencing. I can use it for chicken coop builds, any number of things I can use the wood for. So I'm going to keep the stalks of the cedar trees and use those. But one of the downsides is they block sunlight to the ground. So there's very little foliage, very little natural cover on the ground underneath it. There's another one over here behind me, and I'll bring you in closer to show you. So under and around our cedar trees, a little pine tree here in front of me, but around the cedar trees there is very little ground cover. There's very little foliage, there's very little grasses or anything that will grow underneath it, which means it's also going to be subject to erosion. Not a good situation. So for our wildlife, and if you're raising livestock on your homestead, you want as much forage as possible, compared to areas like over here where I don't have a cedar tree. You can see the sunlight penetrates the ground and we get a much better, much denser stand of cover, forage and grasses underneath regular trees. So here's another example. This is a pretty cedar tree. What we have here, these are all Eastern red cedar. But on this side, I've cut a bunch of the limbs up. I've still got a few more to cut off here. But you can see under this one where I have raised the foliage, I've gotten it up. So we have, less dense foliage down here at the ground. The sunlight can get down. I've got quite a bit of growth, plant life growing underneath this. Underneath this particular one, this is prostrate trichophoid, which is a good nitrogen fixer in soil. But because I have removed some of the lower limbs on this, we're beginning to get some growth underneath it. So if you have a cedar tree that you like, that you want to leave where it is, trim those lower leaves up, the lower branches up, so you get sunlight and air to the ground area. So here I've got a couple of pretty large cedar trees, and again, there's very little growing underneath them. There's a little bit of Yaupon holly, but no other real forage for wildlife or other animals. So that continues to be a detriment as far as being able to feed livestock or wildlife. There's really nothing underneath them. So the good thing about them, however, is they're a great wind block. This thick foliage on your cedar trees, I have found all kinds of wild game close by or using this as a windbreak, like on the other side of this little stand. There's 2 or 3 cedar trees right here in a clump, and they're providing a great windbreak for wildlife. They could also provide a great windbreak for livestock. So that's one thing to consider, is placement. Where are they? Where are they located? Is it useful where it is, or is it a detriment where it is? So I may take out one of these and leave the other one. Both of these are fairly mature trees. They're not as big as the one we have down front, but they're also competing with other trees that I do want here. For example, hopefully you can see this beautiful pine tree here, and pine trees all around behind this, and they're competing for resources. So my cedar tree is competing for nutrients, is competing for water with the trees that I really do want in this location. So I'm probably going to thin at least one of these, maybe, because I think there's actually 3 here. I'm going to probably thin out 2 of them, and that way these trees are not competing so much for the water, especially in the dry season. So just keep those things in mind when you're talking about your cedar trees on your property. So let's talk a little bit about the fire dangers of cedar trees. Cedar trees are highly flammable. dead or alive. This tree, this will burn really fast, really hot, and it can contribute to wildfires on your farm or homestead. So this is a large, mature cedar tree here. And as you can see, there is little or no growth of any foliage underneath it. This one is actually too big. The trunk on this is too big to be used for fencing or much else, but it could be milled down into more usable pieces. So it's just, you can see in front of me here, the grass outside of the band of the foliage on these. We've got a lot of foliage, we've got a lot of ground cover, so I don't have a problem with erosion. Also in this situation, right next to it is a dead pine tree. Now I don't know if the competition with the cedar tree killed that pine tree or not. It could have been any number of things, lightning strike, pest infestation, I just don't know. But it is in real close proximity to this cedar tree. So again, I think competing for resources, which tree would I rather have on my property or on my homestead? In this case, I vote for the pine. So an abundance or an overgrowth of cedar trees can actually harm your property value. So if you're interested in maintaining a property, you want a limited number of the cedar trees on that property. They're just prolific. They come up everywhere. When I find the little shoots, the little sprouts of cedars coming up, if it's not a place I want a cedar tree, then I'd be sure to pull those up or chop them down. So we've got this tree right here. This is on the edge of a small clearing we have here. And so this tree is a perfect size for fence posts and uses as lumber. So I'm going to take that cedar tree out. However, I have another cedar tree. Hopefully you can see this guy way back here. So I've got this large cedar tree. This cedar tree is up against a dense forest thicket. And this cedar tree I'm going to leave because it's part of the wildlife. It's part of wildlife rearing their young. It's part of being cover for wildlife. And in my opinion, this tree is not hurting anything. It's not anywhere near my home. So that one will stay. So I can see there's a couple of scraggly ones around the edge of it here trying to pop up. I will most likely take those guys out so I don't have an overpopulation. So use some thought about where the cedar trees are located, what their purpose is, and how do they affect your property? How do they affect your home? How do they affect the biodiversity? So the cedar trees are harmful to the biodiversity because you can see under this one again, there's very little forage for wildlife or livestock underneath that tree. The other one is up against that thicket right there. So I don't mind that one being there for wildlife cover or livestock cover. So just be considerate of where those trees are and what their purpose might be. The cedar trees can really be aggressive. They can really take over a property and choke out other trees, other forage and other, again, competing for minerals and water for plants. I've got 4 of them right here that I've chopped down. The tops are kind of small, but the centers of these are great for fence posts. So I've got 4 right here, 1 right there, and another one back here in the back. So these were all in the stand, kind of close together. I see another one right there that's still standing. So I still have, in my opinion, I have too many cedar trees. I don't mind having a few. They have some benefits, as I've said, but as far as their ability to take over a property, I'm sure a lot of you have seen where cedar trees have just covered a landscape. That landscape has not been well managed. So it's a fire danger. There's certainly nothing much there for your wildlife and for your livestock forage. So pay attention to your cedar trees. Let's clean some of these up where we need to. It's similar to in parts of western Texas where they have mesquite trees. And then the mesquite trees, similar to cedar trees, can take over. They're so prolific. And part of the reason is the soil doesn't want to be bare, and it will sprout the fastest growing possible trees that it can in order to cover the ground, cover the soil, prevent erosion, and maintain water in the soil. I totally understand that. But when you clear a field and you overgraze it with cattle and you have cedar trees that pop up, or as in the West Texas areas and probably other places, you have the mesquite trees pop up, they are just a nuisance. There's too many, and they will not regenerate the soil. They will not regenerate the grass. The only thing I know that your mesquite trees, they are a form of legume. They will bring atmospheric nitrogen into the soil, but I'm not sure that cedar trees are doing anything except being consumers of nutrients in the ground. It takes forever for them to break down. Even when they're cut down and dropped. I've cut these, they're down, and I'm going to come back and buck these limbs and use the trunks for fence posts, chicken coops, that kind of thing. But if you know of any other uses, any benefits that you'd like to comment on for cedar trees, be sure and add those in the comments below. And if you have any questions about cedar trees and thinning and maintaining your property, I'd love to hear those questions as well, so we can learn from each other. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you'll like our video. I hope you'll subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll always know when we create new content. So have a great day, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.